Hi, beloved. I'm Rob Spurko. I'm a member of the Article 2 Study Commission, and I'm making some videos here to address some of the issues that have come up in the discussions around Article 2, and just to provide a little more insight on um, on some of the commission's thinking. But I have to say, I'm not speaking on behalf of the UUA. I'm not even speaking on behalf of the commission. I'm not running this by the rest of the commission here, just my personal take as someone who was on the commission and the insights I have from being in the process, right? And what I want to talk about today is accountability. That's come up as a big concern for a lot of people, that somehow this accountability is going to be enforced on congregations, that there are, I think somebody even used the word like, UUA enforcers or something like that. Uh, um, I think practically, having worked, with UUA staff for the past couple of years, that not in their hearts as their vision of their work, for one thing, practically, it couldn't happen, to be honest. There's no mechanism for it. There's no enforcement power on that level. We are congregational polity. Um, and that shouldn't be controversial, honestly. We say in the preamble and the revision, love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Right, so that's where the word accountable comes in. We are accountable to one another. That answers that question. Who's going to enforce this? I mean, it goes back to the Cambridge platform in congregational polity. Congregations are accountable to each other. The UUA is a way to formalize that to some degree, but as an organization, you know, it does not have a lot of the power that people seem to fear it has. Um, and maybe I should do a video about Article 3, which is the one that guarantees congregational polity. But um, but yeah, what do we mean by accountability? When we talk about accountability, what are we saying? I wonder, my first reaction, I think, when I was hearing this concern, that I had to work through, I'll be honest. Because here in East Tennessee, we have a saying, which is a hit dog hollers. Um, you know, that if you're stung by a comment, and maybe you've done something, like if you've not done anything, what are you worried about? Um, and that's got some problems as a line of thinking. And I wanted to do a little deeper digging in myself. And I think it's cultural in this sense that we, most of us who come to UU from a Protestant background, right? I was raised Presbyterian. Um, we've sort of dismantled and deconstructed a lot of those beliefs, either before we come to UU or, as part of our growth, in Unitarian Universalism. I think intellectually we've worked that out. We don't believe a lot of the propositions of, you know, some strands of Christianity. But we're free thinkers, absolutely. But I don't think we're free feelers yet. In other words, I think we act as if we feel that, if we've sinned, then we've fallen. If we are dirty, then we're forever sullied. We're stained, right? Out damned spot, to quote the Scottish play, that there's some mark on us, right? That guilt structure, right? Protestant guilt ethic is pretty strong and has influenced a lot of elements of the culture outside of churches. Right? And then, there's also Catholic guilt, there's Jewish guilt, lots of guilt flowing around to reinforce this. And so we, I think, still on an unconscious level, a lot of times come into these interactions expecting punishment, expecting authority and hierarchy, and expecting that we're going to be found lacking. And I think we probably need to do more work unpacking it. I mean, you see it, I think, sometimes in anti-racist circles where, if you've done something, right, then, you're a racist. And, it's what I like the distinction in the good anti-racist work between, being racist and doing racist things, right? And we assume if I've done a racist thing, if I've said something racist, then I am a racist, right? That's how that logic works, right? I've sinned, I've fallen. And we actually don't believe that as Unitarian Universalists, right? As Unitarian Universalists, we are not inevitably sinful beings. We are not, um, you know, creatures of sin. We're born in love. And we can know that, but I'm not always sure we feel that. Right? That's what we have to work on. That's why, I mean, we have to remind ourselves a lot. In most religions, right? If loving were easy, religions wouldn't have to remind us over and over. Love thy neighbor, treat the other as you would like to be treated. The various incarnations of the golden rule. Not a lot of religions say to breathe. Well, Buddhism, but it's a little different. Um, they don't say to breathe because breathing is easy. Loving is hard. That's what we need reminders of. Um, and so as a part of dismantling that, I think really getting into covenant is a way to do that. Right? That covenant is a way to create a space where the focus is not on calling out, but calling in. And again, some people say they've had experiences with covenant where they've been called out of covenant, etc. And if that's happened to you, I'm sorry. That's not the way I think covenant should be used. Right? That covenant is a way to have a space outside of sin, right? Where acknowledgement of harm can happen, repair of it can happen. The whole point of covenant is to create a framework where we can sort of agree on the rules and have a space to talk about it so that we can be in loving community again when things inevitably happen that cause conflict or cause harm or whatever. That calling in, right? Um, Adrienne Maree Brown has a whole book out, right, about, call in culture now. What does that look like? How do we do that? Um, I think for me, the model of accountability is honestly the best thing I've ever read on it is from Mia Mingus. They are a disability activist, uh, and they incredibly perceptive about apologies and accountability. And I'm just going to read you a chunk of it, honestly. I'll put the link in the description below the video here. But it really captures, right, as my thinking on accountability has evolved, right, over the past few years, as I have come to understand and do some of this unpacking work myself. Because again, I'll be honest, I can remember being really worried, right, that I would be called out for something. I would say something wrong or whatever. And again, that logic works, that I've fallen. I'm not going to be seen as trustworthy. The other people whose opinions I value are not going to see that I'm a partner or an ally in the work. And you have to get past it. That's the thing. You have to move past that, to know better and to do better. Right? I have been lucky enough to have in my life people who are willing to, call me in to point out, ooh, when you said that, that was not ideal, and tell me that honestly. I think I maintained their trust in the sense that I did not react immediately with denial or like, oh, that can't be me, or, reversing the attack or something, or just leaving, of flouncing out of a space, to really sit with it and to say, okay, that's bad, right? I apologize for it. I do better next time, but I don't leave the work that I'm doing just because I've said something wrong, right? Um, There's a lot to be talked about there. Um, but I'm talking about accountability here. And well, here's Mia Mingus. Let's say says, what if accountability wasn't scary? It will never be easy or comfortable, but what if it wasn't scary? What if our own accountability wasn't something we ran from, but something we ran towards and desired, appreciated, held as sacred? What if we cherished opportunities to take accountability as precious opportunities to practice liberation, to practice love, to practice the kinds of people, elders to be, and souls we want to be, to practice that which we can only practice in real time? After all, we can only practice courage when we're afraid. We can only practice taking accountability when we have wronged or harmed or hurt. Practice yields the sharpest analysis. Accountability is not a destination. It is a skill that we can build and practice. It is an art, a craft, an alchemy we can learn how to wield, just as we have learned how to wield hurt and shame and fear. If accountability is a skill we value, then we must make room and make commitments to practice it ourselves each day, each week, each year. We can start small and build up our skills from there. We can start with our everyday relationships and those closest to us, our families, our friends, our partners, our coworkers, the earth. We can start with our self-accountability and ways that we don't show up for ourselves. We can acknowledge how most of us are in an abusive relationship with ourselves. We blow past our own boundaries. We punish and beat ourselves up in terrible ways. We can start with the ways we treat and talk to ourselves, ways that we would clearly recognize as abuse if it were being done to another person. After all, our abusive relationship with ourselves lays the groundwork for an abusive world. What if we embraced accountability as a reflection of our undeniable, incredible, tender humanity, as a magnificent example of what it means to be human and flawed and in relationship with one another? What if we welcome the quickening of our pulse and the beating of our hearts as signals of being alive and caring, and what is most important to us, our relationships with each other? What if we listened to that fear of losing someone important to us or of losing ourselves? What if we rushed towards our own accountability and understood it as a gift we can give ourselves and those hurting from our harm? What if we understood our accountability not as some small, insignificant act, but as an intentional drop in an ever-growing river of healing, care, and repair that had the potential to nourish, comfort, and build back trust on a large scale, carving new paths of hope and faith through mountains of fear and unacknowledged pain for generations? What if we could understand that in a violent and oppressive world, the work of love is never done? There's more. Mingus says a lot more. But I think that gives you the flavor. I mean, I wish Mia Mingus were a Unitarian Universalist. I certainly sound like one in this ability to articulate challenge and accountability and love. That's the kind of accountability we should practice. That opportunity for growth. And I think one of our problems, and I'm speaking from me, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think this is shared by a number of people, I can say with some authority. We don't want to screw up. As Unitarian Universalists, I think we tend to attract perfectionists in some ways, people who don't want to screw up, people who have good intentions. We want to make the world a better place. We want to love the world and the people in it. And when we cause harm, when we are told we caused harm, then we've made a mistake. We're confronted with that. We don't like to make mistakes. We don't like to admit to them. A range of defensive things happen, I think, in a lot of us when we hear, oh, you've hurt me. This hurts. that's work we have to do in ourselves, I think. I think covenant, though, can help us create a space where we can talk about these things and see accountability as a loving practice, right, on both sides. Um, but we have to come into that space in humility and honesty to to be direct, to be willing to learn better and do better on both sides, to extend a little bit of grace from those who have been harmed, uh, and uh, quite a lot of humility on the part of those who have done some harming. None of us are perfect. That's a Does that sound like a contradiction? We're all born in love, but none of us are perfect. No, I think it's not a contradiction. Um, to say our nature is love, but our practice is always imperfect. Accountability is just a way to be reminded of that. It is a loving practice. It should be a loving practice. I think we should all work on understanding it that way. That kind of loving accountability that creates a beloved community, not through exclusion, but through inclusion. You know, there's Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg has a book on repentance and repair. And a quote from it is my cover picture on Facebook. We've all caused harm. We've all been harmed. We've all witnessed harm. We are all always growing in our messy, imperfect attempts to do right, to clean up, to repair, to make sense of what's happened, and to figure out where we go from here. The practice of accountability, the practice of love, the practice of covenant, all interrelated, I think gives Unitarian Universalists a unique space to work on these skills with each other and to help heal this world and ourselves. So as you think about accountability, keep that in mind. That's certainly my preferred understanding of accountability at this point. I think that needs to be the model, honestly, as we go forward to avoid some of the fears people have about accountable. But again, I think those of us with fears about it need to understand where those fears come from and in what ways they represent things we do need to work out in our own understandings of ourselves and our communities. So that's my thoughts. Would love to hear, your reaction to that. And yeah, let's keep on working together in love. Thanks.